evening. It's 2200 hours in Banjul and broadcasting for viewers in the Gambia and around the world. This is GRTS News with me, Winifred Nicole, in the headlines this evening. His Excellency, President Adama Barrow, receives a delegation from the Nigeria-National Drug Law Enforcement Agency at the State House. Notable Gambian historian, arts administrator and heritage ambassador, Mr. Bakari Sidibe dies at the age of 100. Observing new COVID-19 regulations, GRTS visits public institutions to examine how workers are keeping up with new mandatory safety measures amid a fresh wave of cases. In sports, Peruth Chamutai becomes the first Ugandan woman to win gold in the women's 3,000 meters steeplechase at the Tokyo Olympics. And former agriculture minister and prominent politician Omar Amadou Jallow calls on government to increase support for sports. Plus, the World Health Organization calls for a global moratorium on the COVID booster jab until the end of September. Well, details of that and much more coming ahead in this edition of the news. Do stay with us. Well, my name is Winifred Nicole. It's great to have you here. We begin with the presidency, where a delegation from the Nigeria-National Drug Law Enforcement Agency on Thursday paid a courtesy call on President Adama Barrow at the State House. The purpose of their visit is to sign a memorandum of understanding between the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency and its Gambian counterpart. This MOU seeks to strengthen the already existing bilateral ties between the two drug law enforcement agencies, while looking forward to learning from each other through information sharing. Shortly after their meeting, Brigadier General Buba Marwa Mohammed spoke to the press. Let's take a listen for more on that.
The purpose of the courtesy visit was to show our respects and touch on the essence of our visit to the Gambia, which is the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Nigerian Drug Law Enforcement Agency and our Gambian counterparts, the Drug Law Enforcement Agency of the Gambia. Certainly, the relationships between both countries precedes this MOU. We've had very fruitful, warm, and cordial relationships between us for several decades. So the MOU is one more of these areas of cooperation between us. The drug trade, drug abuse, the drug cartels is one of the threats facing the international community, and it is up to countries, especially in our sub-region, to partner, collaborate, and cooperate to make sure that we eliminate the drug cartels and drug trade. This is the essence, and we briefed His Excellency that this is why we are here. We will share information, especially intelligence, operations, logistical areas, training, and any other area between us that will boost our mission of eliminating the cultivation, production, sale, and trafficking of narcotic drugs, psychotropic substances, and their precursors. This is the essence of it. The President, His Excellency Barrow, has confirmed to us his political will, which is really what is needed. Once the political will is there from the President, everything else will flow. So I trust that all will be well in the implementation of the MOU between the two agencies. The sharing of information, which is key to develop intelligence, and matters of operationability between us, there will be details, of course, tied to that. The issue of training is very important. We're going to be open to this. We have, of course, the NDLEA Academy, which is even now running courses. We are going to give vacancies. And any other area It's a very flexible MOU. It has embedded in it that if there are any other areas of interest from D-League, we'll be open to it.
And now to some sad news breaking in the country's cultural sphere. Notable historian, lexicographer, heritage ambassador, and arts administrator, Mr. Bakari Sidibe, died on Wednesday at the age of 100. Mr. Sidibe was the leading historian on Cabo history and evolution of the Manding state, which was destroyed in 1867 by an invading Fula army. Gaining global acclaim for his research and writings on Cabo and its successor state, Fuladu, Mr. Sidibe was one of the most respected historians in the West Africa sub-region. Ibrahim Ajalo was among scores of mourners who converged at the Bundung burial ground to pay their last respect to the heritage ambassador.
The body of the late veteran historian Bakari Sidibe, placed before a Muslim congregation at the Bundung Central Mosque for prayers. From here, he was driven to the Bundung Cemetery in Loki and finally laid to rest. Regarded as a patriotic son of the land, who served the country to the best of his abilities. Cabinet Minister Lamin Diba shared his knowledge of the late Sidibe's legacy with GRTS.
I understand that he worked for the National Council for Arts and Culture, but also contributed a lot to the culture of this country. And culture is one of the unique characteristics of any society. That is your way of life. So a man who has, contributed over 50 years of his life to national service is somebody that needs to be commemorated. And I believe his family also, we want to pray that some of his people, children, also emulate his example to be a seasoned and dedicated civil servant for the country.
Bakari Sidibe was said to be the first research officer of the National Cultural Archives, established in 1971. He was responsible of collecting both oral tradition and material items of culture for the beginning of the Gambia National Museum under the National Center for Arts and Culture, NCAC.
I understand that he worked for the National Council for Arts and Culture, but also contributed a lot to the culture of this country. Honorable Sidibe also made tribute to him, that he had worked with him on the curriculum development, on education, and even some schools that he has opened. One of the former UN staff talked to me about him, that he opened the Faraba School.
His demise has been described as great loss to the brave family and the nation. Ibrahim Ajalo, GRTS.
May his soul rest in perfect peace. Well, we were joined earlier in the studio by Mr. Hassam Sise, Director General of the National Council for Arts and Culture. Let's take a listen for more on that. Sidibe was a giant authority on West African history. Kindly take us, a bit through his life as a heritage ambassador and works in writing important parts of African history.
Well, indeed, he was the doyen of the trade of historical research and writing in this country. I once asked him how he came into history. Writing and researching it, because he studied at SOAS. He went there in 1950 to study linguistics. The colonial government wanted to introduce, Mandinka as a subject in the schools, and he was sent as a qualified teacher. Now, from at SOAS, like Buba said, he wrote a dictionary, English Mandinka dictionary, which is still in print. But when he returned, back to Amite School to teach, he was asked to teach history, and he said he had no material. There was no archives, So he said he had to start using, the Goebbels and the old people. And that is how he became a champion of the use of oral sources in, narrating the history of the Gambia and the history of Africa. And really, on Cabo, the great Mandinka state, which was conquered by the Fula army at the Battle of Kansala in 1867. He was the leading world authority on Cabo. Just before he died, he brought out this book, which I think our readers should be, our listeners should be able to see.
That's a brief history of Cabo and Fuladu.
Of Cabo and Fuladu. It was a very, 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 concise history of these, two great states. And also, part of his historical work was sort of to Gambianize or to give a Gambian twist to the Sunjata epic. Sunjata, the king of Mali, the great Mali Empire. His legend, you have the Malian version, you have the Guinean version, you have the Casamance version. So Mr. Sidibe also, working with, Alaji Bamba Suso, the great, kora player, in the 1970s, sort of produced like a Gambian, version, of the Sunjata story, which I encourage him to, publish, and this book, also came out. Just before he died. So really, in that regard, we can say that he worked very hard to Gambianize. Our history, using oral sources, and also focusing on the pre-colonial Gambian states to tell everybody that even before the arrival of the Europeans, we had powerful sovereign states. Yes, on several occasions. I had asked him about Mr. Sidibe, why Cabo? And then he would tell me, Hassan, in fact, you should start to work on Cabo. I said, well, but, I have nothing else to say about Cabo. You've said it all. But he was quite enthusiastic with the work I do and the work we do at the museum. He knew that Gambian history is wide, so not everybody can be interested in Cabo like him. It was good that some of us also take interest in other areas. But I'm happy that there are Gambian historians following in his footsteps of valorizing oral sources. Like my friend, Dr. Turi at the university, is very, very, enthusiastic with oral sources.
Good.
Yes.
Now, for many, the late historian was, a cultural figure.
He was.
Yes, and
yes.
Who was firm and unwavering in his, accounts of Gambian history. But tell us, how much of a loss is this to Gambians in terms of, preservation of ancient West African life and, chronology?
It's a great loss. He had a lot of friends. The late Professor Jibril Tamsir Nyan, who died, a few weeks ago, in Guinea. Professor Seni Modi Sissoko in Mali. Professor K. Odike, of Ibadan fame. Dr. Abubakar Bari, at the University of Sheikh Anta Diop. He had all this wide network. Professor David Conrad. Professor Donald Wright, at the State University of New York. He had all this wide, network of historians interested in Gambian history, and everybody consulted him. I dare tell you, from 1967, when Charlotte Quinn wrote her thesis, on the Gambian, states, of Badibu, until today, every Gambian who had written a PhD thesis on any aspect of Gambian history had consulted Mr. Sidibe directly or indirectly.
Good. We all know that, Mr. Sidibe contributed, immensely to multiple studies, research and documentations of Manding and Cabo history. Take us through some of his notable works.
Well,
like you've mentioned,
the Cabo and Fuladu. This is really a monumental work. He was related to Musa Molo, the last king of Fuladu on the mother side. And he was very unhappy. He used to tell me that the British captured Musa Molo in 1919 because they said Musa Molo had 125 wives because he was a king. He had the right to do so. The British said, we understand only one wife. So all the other 124 wives are your slaves. You either release them or we arrest you because slavery is banned in the Gambia. Okay? Musa Molo said, no, I'm a king, I have my wives, I will not release them. So the British captured him and exiled him to Sierra Leone. Now that angered him. He would tell me, just to say, like British arrogance, towards African heritage and culture. And now in 1972, Salawda asked him to lead the Gambia at the Manding Conference. Sir Edward Heath, the British Prime Minister, he organized this conference on Manding civilization. And he took along, Jalinya Masuso, he took along, Alaji Lalo Keba Drame to Manding, and he presented a very, very powerful paper, just to, portray Gambian history and culture at this World Forum.
Well, Mr. Sise, thank you so much, for your time on the news. But we will definitely have you back, to expand this discussion more. Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Well, that's the director of the NCAC and Erudite History. Well, National Center for Arts and Culture, Hasum Sise there talking to us earlier on the news. Now moving on, the government of the Gambia released new guidelines for public offices to adhere to compulsory wearing of face masks, regular washing of hands, and maintaining appropriate social distancing in and around office premises. GRTS Senabu Jain visited public offices including the Personnel Management Office in Banjul and prepared this report.
View of the recent surges in COVID-19 cases in the Gambia, new guidelines were circulated yesterday informing all public offices to adhere to the compulsory wearing of face masks. Sheriff Binjai, Admin and HR Development Officer at the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, explains how his office is adhering to the notice.
For our office here at the Gambia Bureau of Statistics, we are definitely working on all the necessary logistics that we could apply in making sure that the regulations are adhered to by all staff. In that case, we are able to purchase a face mask for the whole staff, as well as put stations for hand sanitizers for any visitor or staff that enter the building at all times.
Bala Kande, Program Manager at the National Malaria Control, said their office leads by example of ensuring public health officials protection in order to protect others. Lamin Jawara, Permanent Secretary at the Personal Management Office, explains the need for the requirement of the wearing of face masks in public offices. This move is aimed at safeguarding the health of staff and others.
We are all aware this letter is very self-explanatory. The recent surge in COVID-19 cases is a cause for concern for government, and I think for everybody should be concerned. The COVID-19 guidelines have been issued by Ministry of Health for quite some time now. The public is being advised to adhere to those guidelines, regulations. It's a cause for concern for government, and we think as a government we should set the example by complying with these guidelines, COVID-19 guidelines, and that is why we think to safeguard the health of public servants in general, we need to enforce these guidelines, because it's one thing you safeguard your own health, it's another thing you safeguard the health of others that you are working.
Permanent Secretary continued on compliance.
If the law says you should comply, you must comply, and there should not be any room for anybody to have excuse because I came, I forgot my mask, and I was told not to enter, and I was sent home. So that's why we say if anybody does that, you should face the consequences. And the consequences are you will be deducted a day's salary from your next month pay. But people must know that it is not an excuse for not coming to work. You have to come to work, and you must also adhere to the guidelines.
Since the new regulations have been passed, public servants are urged to comply with the regulations. Sainabu Jang for GRTS News.
Sainabu Jain there, but we deeply apologize for bringing you the wrong picture on the demise of Bakari Sidibe earlier on in the news, but we really hope to work on that report and bring it back in our subsequent newscast. Moving on, the network of tax and financial reporters in collaboration with the Ministry of Trade, Industry, Regional Integration and Employment recently organized a media training on ECOWAS protocols and the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Ibrahim Jallo was there, and he now reports on the day-long forum funded by the ECOWAS National Office.
Africa has begun implementation of an agreement for the free movement of goods and services within the continent. However, knowledge of media practitioners in this process is said to be paramount, and that is the reason for this media training on ECOWAS protocols and Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. The president of the Network of Tax and Financial Reporters, Abdullah Nyoke, said the forum was meant to help journalists understand issues surrounding ECOWAS protocols and the Africa Continental Trade matters for accurate and impactful reporting.
The forum is also aimed at providing journalists the critical understanding on the role of the media in the promotion of the regional integration within the corridor of West African region. However, I have no doubt that with the caliber of resource person we have, journalists will be equipped with the requisite knowledge to enable us report accurately on cross-border issues. Going forward, considering some of the major obstacles people encounter at the corridor of West African region, there is need for more awareness creation on the ECOWAS legal instrument.
The Permanent Secretary Ministry of Trade, Ibrahim Sisaho, emphasized the need for journalists to understand the business environment, trade and tax regulations through knowledge and experience sharing with experts in the domain.
We have schemes like the ECOWAS Trade Liberalization Scheme, the AGOAS, and now we have the AFCFTA, which is a bigger version of all these arrangements. But for us to take advantage of this, we need to know what they are, what are the protocols, as already mentioned here. And it's only through you that the people, the general public, can be aware of these opportunities.
Understanding sub-regional and continental treaties and instruments is an essential tool for media to hold duty bearers accountable. The Vice President of the Gambia Press Union and the Executive Secretary of the Gambia Bankers Association, Mod Salih Ba and Alaji Jang, respectively, agreed.
It is a duty for us as the media personnel to be aware of these things and then ensure that we hold duty bearers accountable.
It was an interactive session bent on knowledge and experience sharing, on trade and finance and the role of media in these sectors. Negotiations on trade in goods and services, custom tariff, investment and competition, amongst others, were some of the technicalities of the AFCTA that were explained to the journalist. Ibrahim Jallo, GRTS News.
The Office of the National Security, in collaboration with Catholic Relief Services, on Thursday began a 6-day training for security personnel on social cohesion for peace building at a local hotel in Bijilo. The training came on the backdrop of a memorandum of understanding between the two institutions in the implementation of the security sector reform. Usman Mane has more.
Respect for human dignity, for peaceful coexistence is the bedrock for any democratic society. There can be a peaceful and just society in the absence of security. Thus, the training for security personnel on social cohesion for peace building, organized by the Office of the National Security in partnership with the Catholic Relief Services. CRS since 1964 has been providing food security, enhanced healthcare, educational as well as emergency response services. Shifting to consolidate government security sector reforms is one of the targeted objectives of the training. Baba Balaja, on behalf of the CRS country resident representative, spoke at length on the significance of the training.
The agency's signature of 3B social cohesion methodology takes participants through the process of binding, individual self-reflection, and healing, followed by bonding, reinforcing relationship within a single identity group, and finally, bridging, repairing broken or damaged relationships across identity groups and border communities.
Speaking on the occasion, the National Security Advisor, retired Colonel Momodu Baji, said social cohesion is a determinant for peace building, and he called on Gambians to nurture the peace and foster tolerance within our society.
Social cohesion is not the only responsibility of the government alone. The local government, civil society, non-state actors, media, and people of the Gambia all have a responsibility and an important role to play in shifting unfit cultural norms and creating a public consciousness that recognizes many commonalities shared between our diverse group and people.
In her keynote address, the Deputy Secretary General, Salimatu A. Toure, noted that national security is now experiencing a human security approach from the traditional security concept.
As work progresses under the security reform sector strategy, the government of the Gambia will set out parameters necessary to fulfill the legitimate functions of the respective line ministries and the security services operating under them, thus ensuring an effective and efficient security sector reform. More importantly, the government is committed to facilitating civilian management and oversight of the security sector in line with good practices.
The training is expected to last for 6 days, to be succeeded by another cohort of trainees under the partnership. Usman Mane, GRTS.
Enhancing youth participation for sustainable growth of the Teachers Trade Union. The Gambia Teachers Union has trained dozens of young teachers in leadership and good governance. Louis Mendy reports on the Thursday's exercise captioned, "The Young Teachers Platform General Assembly Meeting."
The Gambia Teachers Union has been preparing its youths for leadership and good governance. The current administrators holding the belief that the Teachers Trade Union remains bleak if the youths who are supposed to inherit them are not prepared for the assignment of good leadership. Antoinette Korjak is the General Secretary at the Union.
Your presence here today is a powerful reflection of our collective desire to see a positive change through an effective and progressive response to our collective actions to advance the involvement of young teachers in union leadership.
Mrs. Korjak said the desire to attract, retain, and energize new and young members in the Teachers Trade Union movement was at the heart of the recent webinar organized by Education International Africa, in which the Chief Regional Coordinator said they need to organize and mobilize young educators and women into the Teacher Trade Union movement and give them the space to contribute, to lead, and shine.
Union leadership should be our lifeblood and a lifelong endeavor. We need to critically examine our structures, operations, and practices. Anais Dayamba, the gender desk officer, during the same seminar said, and I quote, "Young people are not only the future of the union, but the present heartbeat of the union. Let's allow them to be in leadership roles so they can use their full potential. We have to be bold enough to recognize that our union culture must change."
Caption the Young Teachers Platform General Assembly meeting, the training in leadership and good governance, ushered into office the first executive committee of the Young Teachers Platform. Adam Abale is the interim chair.
This is a great milestone in the history of the Gambia Teachers Union for establishing an organ that ensures the full representation of the young people by empowering them to participate and contribute to the welfare of teachers, considering the fact that anywhere, in any organization, youth play a very important role in the development processes.
The meeting was also graced by Ismaila Cisse, the president of the Gambia Teachers Union.
In a broader sense, our primary mandate as a national executive committee is about, one, to setting direction, aims, and objectives, planning how progress will be made for a goal achieved, organizing available resources, people, time, material, so that the goal can be economically achieved in the planned way, controlling the process, measuring achievements against plan, and taking corrective actions where appropriate, and finally, setting and improving organizational standards.
And as the Gambia Teachers Union endeavor to enhance participation in leadership and good governance among youth for the growth of the Teachers Trade Union, Louis Moses Mendy, the Permanent Secretary, Administrator of Basic and Secondary Education, reminded participants that winners never quit and quitters never win, and in the process, one must endow his or herself with the right attitude.
As an individual, your actions today will give birth to your tomorrow that you will live in. Whatever you do today, the decisions you take today will be the decisions or the welfare you will find yourself tomorrow. As a country, we form a very good percentage, meaning the Gambia that we will live in 25 years to come would depend on your actions today.
The expectation is that knowledge gain in the Teachers Platform General Assembly meeting will not only enhance the growth of the Teachers Trade Union, but also enhance personal growth as leadership among teachers extends to classrooms. Louis Mendy, GRTS.
The Basse Immigration Office has received 3 new motorbikes to facilitate patrols and general movement in the cosmopolitan settlement. The mobility support is provided by the High Command of the Gambia Immigration Department. Our regional correspondent, Seydou Kamara, has more.
Mobility has been one of the key challenges of the Basse Immigration Unit, and the top command of the Immigration Department has just responded to that by providing brand new motorbikes to ease the movement of their staff. At a brief presentation ceremony, the new commissioner of the immigration in the Upper River region, Ibu Korea, which he said would greatly enhance their work in the region.
And I must thank the Director General of Immigration to give out these motorcycles to URR to make the immigration officers on their patrol so easy. There are 3 motorcycles. You know, it cannot just fit in the vehicle, but he have donated 3 motorcycles. So, okay, on that note, I have to thank the Director General of considering URR has his key point.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Basse Area Council also commended the command for responding to what he called a very crucial area.
Indeed, this is very, very important. Security is very key, and looking they are very porous. So giving the security, the immigration mobility to go around to see what is happening in our borders, I think it is very timely. And definitely, we really appreciate this gesture that enhancing the mobility of immigration, looking at our borders. I think this is very timely. And once more again, we want to thank the Immigration Department, and we also want to thank the officers who are receiving these motorbikes today. We expect that these motorbikes will also be put into a very good use.
The Regional Governor of Sambaba also lauded the move by the immigrations.
Immigration has done it again. That is giving the region 3 motorbikes that will serve a long way in trying to patrol the region in the Far East, in the North, and in the South. Because you know, it's in Upper River region that we have, we are bordered on what we call on the 3 sides. In some of the regions, it is only 1 side, but it is only Upper River region that you have 3 sides. That is the Far East, we are bordered with Senegal, the South, we are bordered with Senegal, and the North, we are bordered with Senegal. And in the western part, we are bordered with what CRR. So that becomes very crucial if we are giving 3 motorbikes to make sure that it addresses some of the challenges that we face with regards to mobility.
Governor Ba further challenge other sister forces to do the same for their officers.
And I know, I am convinced that the security personnel that I have in this region with their leadership, I have no doubt when they get the resources available, they will be able to maintain that security that we need for this region and even for the country as a whole. And I will urge you to advise the people who are going to, or the officers who are going to use these motorbikes, to use them judiciously and understand that when you are given something and it is not many and you have a wider coverage, it is always important for you to take care of them. Make sure that they take care of the motorbikes properly, let them not abuse the motorbikes, and let them understand that the motorbikes are given to the department in order for it to at least go on patrols and then see what is happening within the borders of this country more than that. So therefore, and I am sure and I'm convinced that you are going to pass that instruction to your officers and men to make sure that what the motorbikes are given for, they are meant for that.
Mobility is a crucial in effective enforcement services, and the move by the Immigration High Command could enhance motorbike patrols. Sedu Kamara, reporting for GRTS News from Basse Upper River Region.
Well, that report by Sedu Kamara takes us to a short break. We will be back with the sports news right after. Do stay. Welcome back, and now a bit of sports for you. Veteran politician and one-time Agri Minister of the Gambia, Omar Amadou Jallow, calls for stakeholders in sports to invest and support the legends of the Gambia who contributed to the sports in the country. OJ, as he is fondly called, was speaking at the launching of the Serekunda East Legends, a non-profitable organization which is committed to the development of grassroots sports in Serekunda East, as well as improving the welfare of veteran sportsmen and women in the Serekunda East zone. Momodo S. Jallow has more.
Sports enthusiasts, past and present, came together at the Bios Semega Jane Hall to grace the launching of the Serekunda East Legends in short scale. The formation of the association is to remember, recognize, celebrate, and reward those who have contributed immensely to the development of sports in Serekunda East, one of the biggest sporting zones in the country. Various speakers at the event, including the president of the newly formed Serekunda East Legends, Malik Biti, popularly known as Guarantee during his playing days, and the outgoing president of the Serekunda East Sports Development Organization, SESTO, Mamadou Njai, both describe it as a positive move which will contribute to the development of sports in Serekunda East through its core objective of improving grassroots sports. Among the set objectives of the Serekunda East Legends include promoting grassroots community football, which the third vice president of the Gambia Football Federation, Lantombon Tamba, said is a key component for football development, and assured the Gambia Football Federation's collaboration in that area.
I want to assure this August gathering that the GFF will continue to promote grassroots and community football. Of course, those of you who have been following our activities, you must now have noticed that we've been doing this for a very long time. But we'll continue to do this because that is the only way for the success and continuity of Gambian football.
The Director General of Pura, Yusufa Joub, and renowned real estate developer Sol Fraser, whose institutions have partnered with the event, jointly hailed the Serekunda East Legends for a brilliant initiative, which they hope will impact positive changes through the power of sports.
When I heard that the veteran football from Serekunda East will be forming this noble community development association, I just wanted to be part of it. These are the kind of community developments and initiative that we need to support in our communities and give opportunities to the youth.
The colorful event had Omar Amadou Jallow, known as OJ, a former parliamentarian and founding member of the Serekunda East Mini Stadium, as the chief guest, who went memory lane to pay glowing tributes to those who contributed their resources and energy in the formative years of Serekunda East as a sporting zone, calling on stakeholders to support the legends of the game.
You people have started a legacy that some of us should have started yesterday, but unfortunately, no man is perfect. You people are doing a good job, and we will support you and make sure you succeed in what you are doing for all Gambians, not only to benefit from it, but for other areas in Gambia to learn from what you are doing, copy you for the interest and benefit and development of the Gambia.
The event also witnessed the presentation of certificates and cash amount to some legends who have served in various capacities to lay the foundation for sports development in Serekunda East, with one of the awardees describing it as the best feeling ever in his sporting life.
I hereby declare the launching of the Serekunda East Legends officially launched.
With that pronouncement, the Serekunda East Legends was officially launched, and the non-profitable organization is ready to champion sports development in Serekunda East through various activities. Mohamed Jalo, GRTS Sports.
Well, great initiative there. Now, still in sports, Perut Chamutai has become the first Ugandan woman to win gold in the women's 3,000 meters steeplechase at the Tokyo Olympics. On Wednesday, Chamutai became the first female Olympic gold medalist for her country with a time of 9 minutes 01.45 seconds at the Olympic Stadium. The United States' Connie Frankrich sealed silver in 9 minutes 04.79 seconds, and Hyven of Kenya secured bronze in 9 minutes 05.39 seconds. Well, we will go with another short break. The news continues in just a moment. Now a quick look at international headlines making news around the world, starting off in Ethiopia, where the chief of the U.S. Agency for International Development, Samantha Power, has expressed concern over the current number of displaced people in the region surrounding Tigray. The U.S. has been pressing Ethiopia's government to allow more humanitarian and into the Tigray region, where hundreds of thousands of people are said to be facing famine in one of the worst hunger crises in decades.
Indeed, the situation is dire on the continent. In our report, in Oxfam's report last year, we indicated that hunger would actually be more dire than COVID-19 in terms of impact. And what we've seen globally is that 20 million people have been pushed to extreme hunger levels in over 155 million, on 55 countries of 155 million people. On the continent, we do have several hotspots that we are monitoring. For example, Ethiopia, DRC, South Sudan, and the Sahel, where on average we have we're monitoring the hunger levels as having increased by approximately 45%. What are the causes, really, you ask? I think we've put them, we're calling them the three triple lethal Cs: climate, COVID, and conflict. Climate is on top of COVID-19 on account of the fact that it's driving a lot of some of the issues which become exacerbated by COVID-19. And also the fact that the many